You see, my work-from-home routine had afforded me the freedom to embrace the nocturnal hours, a time when solitude wrapped me in its comforting embrace. As a self-professed recluse, venturing out into the night held a certain appeal, and a nearby convenience store became a regular stop on my solitary journeys, nestled just beyond the borders of my neighborhood. This humble emporium catered to the varied needs of its patrons. While predominantly a purveyor of spirits, it also boasted a selection beyond mere libations. On this particular evening, with snowflakes swirling in a mesmerizing dance, my wearied soul yearned for an elixir to rekindle the dwindling embers of energy within. The late hour, obscured by the relentless snowfall, lent an ethereal hush to the world outside. In the solitude of my steps, I found solace, relishing the symphony of my own footfalls crunching through the freshly fallen snow. It was a therapeutic rhythm that accompanied my journey, granting a sense of peace in an otherwise slumbering landscape. Arriving at the store, a scene unfolded before me. A solitary figure, wreathed in tendrils of smoke, lingered outside, engaged in the age-old ritual of nicotine indulgence. We exchanged the customary nod, a silent acknowledgement of our shared humanity, and I proceeded inside. Sifting through the shelves, my gaze settled upon a vibrant soap orange tsunami, a delightful companion for the nights ahead. Behind the counter, a new face awaited, replacing the familiar countenance that had greeted me for years. Engaging in pleasant banter, I shared snippets of my frequent visits and expressed the likelihood of our paths crossing again in the near future. The man exuded an aura of congeniality, leaving a favorable impression upon my wandering thoughts. My transaction complete, I prepared to depart. And yet, as I ventured into the night, a peculiar sensation coursed through my veins, compelling me to cast a glance over my shoulder. Lo and behold, the figure that had stood outside, engrossed in smoke-infused contemplation, now traversed the path towards me. A sense of unease prickled at the nape of my neck, that instinctual response when the specter of unfamiliarity weaves its web of apprehension. Veering off the main road, I sought solace within the winding labyrinth of my residential enclave, a futile attempt to shake off the disquiet that threatened to engulf me. With each step, I succumbed to the inexplicable compulsion to look back, to discern if my fears were substantiated. And each time, my gaze met the haunting visage of the unknown figure, unwavering in their pursuit. Desperation quickened my pace, a futile attempt to outdistance the specter that clung tenaciously to my heels. My mind raced through a labyrinth of possibilities, conjuring a myriad of scenarios, each more unsettling than the last. Why did this stranger persist in shadowing my steps? Was there nefarious intent concealed within their gaze? The streets blurred past as I sought refuge in the familiar embrace of my own abode. My heart, a wild stallion, galloped within my chest, its rhythm syncopated with my panicked breaths. Crossing the threshold of my sanctuary, I cast a furtive glance through the window, hoping for respite from the enigmatic figure that had haunted me. And there, down the street, they stood, their presence a phantom in the wintry tableau, summoning courage and quick thinking. Summoning courage and quick thinking, I hurriedly devised a plan to disrupt the unsettling pursuit. A notion gripped my mind, and I decided to release my loyal companion, Randy, a formidable pit bull with a heart of gold, into the front yard. Perhaps his presence would deter any ill intentions, acting as a sentinel to protect my home from potential harm. As I stepped outside with Randy by my side, the mysterious figure's countenance shifted. Startled, they abandoned their cryptic conversation over the mobile phone and resumed their journey, passing my house with a disconcerting wave. Relief washed over me, grateful that my furry guardian had invoked a sense of caution in the unwelcome interloper. The following day, as I sat ensconced in the embrace of my living room, the television buzzed with breaking news. My breath caught in my throat, freezing in a moment of eerie realization. The convenience store I had visited just hours ago had fallen victim to a ruthless act of robbery and violence. The gentle proprietor, a familiar face, had suffered a savage assault, left battered and broken. A shiver coursed through my veins, for in that instant, I pieced together the fragments of a chilling puzzle. The new cashier, the one I had innocently engaged in conversation, had orchestrated a nefarious scheme. Perhaps the act of following me home was a sinister ploy to ensure my ignorance of their malevolent actions. Filled with a mixture of guilt and resolve, I reached out to the authorities, compelled to share my suspicions. The police, already one step ahead, informed me that they had apprehended a suspect matching my description. It was none other than the seemingly affable cashier, the very same individual who had shadowed my steps in the dead of night. The realization sent shivers down my spine, for it was a stark reminder of the fragility of our existence. Fate had intertwined my path with a malevolent force, and only through a stroke of luck and the protective instincts of my faithful companion had disaster been averted. I mourned for the kind-hearted store owner, his benevolence now forever tarnished by the darkness that had sought to consume him. In the aftermath of that fateful encounter, I held a newfound appreciation for the presence of my loyal dog, Randy. His unwavering devotion had acted as a shield, safeguarding not only my own well-being but also that of an unsuspecting community. And in that moment, I vowed to cherish the blessings of solitude, to revel in the serenity of the night, while remaining ever vigilant to the shadows that lurk just beyond our sight. So, my dear friends, let this tale serve as a cautionary reminder. In the stillness of the night, as darkness weaves its tapestry, beware the strangers who wander silently, for beneath their facade of normalcy, hidden evils may lurk, poised to shatter the tranquility of our lives. And it is only through our own vigilance and the unwavering loyalty of those who stand by our side that we may navigate the treacherous depths of the human experience. During my college days in the great state of Texas, when a group of us embarked on an ill-fated journey to Boulder, Colorado for spring break, little did we know that the road to adventure would lead us down a dark and treacherous path. Our plan was to drive straight through the night, taking turns behind the wheel to ensure we reached our destination with minimal rest. As the hours stretched on and the vast expanse of the Texas Panhandle surrounded us, we found ourselves in a desolate realm devoid of life. Not a soul or vehicle could be seen for miles on end, save for the eerie glow of our headlights piercing the inky darkness. But as fate would have it, our solitude was shattered by the emergence of headlights in our rearview mirror. A vehicle appeared seemingly out of nowhere, rapidly closing the distance between us. Stranger still, it toyed with us, veering close and then receding into the shadows, a macabre dance that sent shivers down our spines. A foreboding sense of unease settled upon us like a heavy fog, and whispers of unease filled the cabin of our car. Then, as if materializing from the abyss itself, the flashing red and blue lights of a police car joined the pursuit. Our hearts skipped a beat as we realized we had unwittingly become entangled in a cat and mouse game with law enforcement. With trepidation, we pulled over to the shoulder, our minds racing to comprehend the reason for this unexpected encounter. A police officer, sporting a distinctive cowboy hat, approached my window with an air of authority. His piercing gaze scanned the occupants of our vehicle, and a knot of anxiety formed in the pit of my stomach. He requested that I step out of the car, a command that sent a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. Despite my apprehension, the presence of my companions alleviated some of my fears, for safety lies in numbers. With wallet in hand, I reluctantly complied, positioning myself against the driver's side door as the officer examined my license and insurance. To my bewilderment, he declared his intent to conduct a sobriety test. Confusion mingled with indignation within me, but confident in my sobriety, I reluctantly agreed, wondering what purpose this charade would serve. As I performed the standardized tests of balance and coordination, the officer maneuvered himself towards the back of his patrol car. It was then that a chilling realization struck me. Once I entered that vehicle, the doors would lock, ensnaring me in a metal prison in the dead of night. Instinctively, my survival instincts kicked in, and I mustered the courage to voice my concerns. Politely yet firmly, I conveyed my reservations, expressing my unwillingness to comply for the sake of my own safety. The officer's countenance darkened with fury, his threats and demands growing louder as I continued to assert my right to protect myself. The standoff between us stretched on, an unyielding battle of wills in the desolate Texas wilderness. In a moment that defied comprehension, the officer leered at me, his voice dripping with malevolence. He brazenly insinuated that I harbored an irrational fear of being kidnapped, a grotesque accusation that chilled me to the core. My gaze darted towards my friends huddled in the car, their eyes filled with concern and a shared determination to protect one of their own. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of mental and emotional turmoil, the officer's demeanor underwent a disturbing transformation. With a sinister smile, he handed back my license and insurance, tipping his hat in a manner that sent a shiver down my spine. Without uttering another word, he retreated to his vehicle and disappeared into the night, leaving us trembling in the wake of his malevolence. As the taillights of the patrol car faded into the distance, relief washed over me like a soothing balm. Yet, the echoes of that chilling encounter reverberated within me, haunting my thoughts long after the incident had passed. What if I had succumbed to fear and climbed into that ominous backseat? What sinister fate awaited me beyond those locked doors? Gathering my scattered composure, I re-entered the safety of our car, my friends offering solace and support. The weight of the ordeal bore down upon me, and tears streamed down my face, a release of pent-up emotions, and the overwhelming realization of how close we had come to a nightmarish fate. In the aftermath of that harrowing encounter, questions plagued my mind. What was the officer's true intent? Was he an embodiment of the very evil he was sworn to protect us from? Or perhaps he was a mere facade concealing a dark secret within the folds of his badge and uniform? Regardless of the answers, the impact of that night forever altered my perception of authority and the fragility of our perceived safety. To this day, I carry with me the indelible lessons learned from that encounter. I learned to trust my instincts, to never compromise my own well-being for the sake of appeasing authority. The experience fueled a fire within me, igniting a passion for justice and a determination to challenge the abuse of power wherever it may lurk. As I recount this tale to you now, dear friends, I implore you to heed its cautionary message. Never allow fear to silence your voice or compromise your safety. Stand firm in the face of adversity, for it is in those moments of darkness that the strength of our resolve is truly tested. And so, let us remember that even amidst the darkest hours of the night, there exists a flicker of resilience within us, a flame that refuses to be extinguished. May it guide us through the shadows and lead us towards a future where the abuse of power is but a distant memory, replaced by a world where justice and compassion prevail. Allow me to transport you back to my youth, a time when the world appeared as a tapestry of faith and devotion. My family, like many others in our town, embraced the teachings of a Christian religion, weaving the fabric of our lives with threads of spirituality. We were not fanatical or extreme. We were simply devout believers seeking solace and purpose within the sanctuary of our faith. From the earliest moments of my childhood, I was instilled with a sense of wonder about the sacred spaces that we called temples. These grand, resplendent structures stood as beacons of divine connection, beckoning only the most worthy among us to step foot within their hallowed halls. The anticipation swelled within my heart, for I was taught that some of the most profound spiritual experiences would unfold within those very walls. Yet, as a curious and inquisitive child, I often found myself yearning for more information. I sought understanding about what transpired within those sacred chambers, hoping to unlock the mysteries hidden behind those closed doors. However, my inquiries were met with enigmatic responses. My family and church leaders would speak in hushed tones, emphasizing the sacredness of the temple rituals and explaining that they were simply too profound to be articulated. It was a delicate dance between intrigue and reverence. Amidst the whispers and vagueness, a peculiar tale reached my ears during my grade school days. A classmate, who did not share our faith, shared with me a fantastical account of temple rituals. She spoke of new names bestowed upon the initiates, of disrobing and donning peculiar garments, of secret handshakes and mystical chants. She wove a tapestry of intrigue and disbelief, painting a picture so vivid and extraordinary that it seemed almost absurd. Naturally, I dismissed her account as a work of pure imagination, born out of ignorance or misunderstanding. How could the revered sanctuaries of my faith be intertwined with such fantastical elements? I cast aside her words, steadfast in my belief that the temple rituals were far more sacred and divine than any mere storytelling could convey. Years later, as I approached the age of 19, I found myself on the precipice of entering the temple for the first time. The anticipation coursed through my veins, blending excitement and trepidation in equal measure. I underwent a series of interviews with my church leaders, answering questions that assessed my worthiness to participate in the temple rites. The inquiries touched upon various aspects of my life, encompassing my faith, my adherence to certain principles, and my commitment to the teachings of our religion. Having passed the scrutinizing interviews, I was granted a card, a golden ticket to the sacred realm of the temple. Joined by my family, we embarked on a journey that held the promise of a profound and transformative experience. What awaited me within those walls defied the expectations I had fostered throughout my young life. The initial moments of the temple rite shattered the illusion of normalcy, revealing a tapestry woven with unconventional threads. I stood, vulnerable and exposed, as an elderly man, an officiator of the temple, applied consecrated oil to various parts of my body. While his touch was not invasive, the sense of exposure weighed heavily upon me. The vulnerability mingled with discomfort, as if I was caught between the realms of the sacred and the profane. Dressed once more, I found myself in a room where another elderly gentleman whispered a new name into my ear, a name I was bound to keep secret, known only to myself and the divine. The weight of this hidden identity settled upon me, a reminder of the unspoken mysteries that lay ahead. The next chapter of the temple rituals unfolded before me as I joined my family and other initiates in a vast room. Within the grandeur of that room, we were immersed in a surreal tableau of symbolism and ceremony. A film flickered to life, its images recounting the story of Adam and Eve, the genesis of humanity, and the divine purpose of our existence. As the scenes unfolded, intermissions punctuated the narrative, offering us glimpses into the mystical practices that awaited us. In those interludes, we engaged in an esoteric education. We learned secret handshakes, whispered passphrases that were said to grant us access to heavenly realms. Each gesture and utterance carried profound significance, connecting us to a hidden tapestry of ancient knowledge. We adorned ourselves in white robes, symbolizing purity, and donned green aprons, reminiscent of the garments worn by the artisans of old. As the ceremony progressed, promises were extracted from our trembling lips. We pledged our unwavering loyalty and dedication not only to God but to the Church itself, a covenant that entwined our destinies with the organization that facilitated our spiritual growth. It was a moment of introspection, the weight of commitment mingling with the scent of incense that filled the air. While the rituals I witnessed that day diverged from the mundane path of my religious upbringing, I found myself torn between the desire to flee and the unyielding grip of social expectations. To leave mid-ritual would be to shatter the facade of devotion I had painstakingly cultivated over the years. The thought of disappointing my family, of abandoning the path I had walked alongside them, whispered of a loneliness I was unprepared to face. Yet, the temple's most disquieting revelation awaited me, an invitation to join a prayer circle. As a first-time attendee, I was beckoned toward the center, where a circle of clasped hands awaited me. The connection formed a conduit of energy and faith, each palm anointed with the knowledge of secret gestures. It was a moment of unity and transcendence, and yet, as I stood there, I couldn't help but feel a disquieting sense of unease. In that hallowed circle, the boundaries between the sacred and the strange blurred. The echoes of my classmates' tale resurfaced in my mind, and I found myself almost expecting the unimaginable, the sacrifice of a goat, the macabre ritual of slitting throats. But such spectacles did not materialize. They were relics of the past, cast aside in the evolution of the temple rites. And so, as the prayer circle concluded, its energy reverberating through our intertwined hands, I silently exhaled a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. The temple experience drew to a close, and we were ushered into a final chamber, a space adorned with ornate decorations, a testament to the artistic devotion of those who had come before us. Within that space, we found solace and sought divine communion. We knelt in prayer, allowing the remnants of the rituals to settle upon our souls. The echoes of whispered promises lingered in the air, mingling with the faint scent of incense and the soft glow of candlelight. And as I gazed upon the faces around me, a mixture of awe, reverence, and perhaps a touch of uncertainty, I pondered the purpose of it all. Leaving the temple that day, I carried with me a tapestry woven with contradictions. The rituals had challenged the boundaries of my understanding, blurring the line between the sacred and the peculiar. The experience had shattered the illusions I once held, revealing a depth and complexity I had never fathomed. In the years that followed, my perception of the temple rites evolved. I grappled with the dissonance between the teachings of my childhood and the realities I had witnessed. Let me regale you with a peculiar incident that unfolded during my time as a chemistry PhD student. Picture this: it was a late night in the chemistry building, and I found myself engrossed in the task of meticulously washing my flasks. Now, let me tell you, I've spent countless hours in that building, and I'm quite familiar with all the nooks and crannies, as well as the esteemed lecturers and professors who roam its halls. It was an unusually late hour, around 9 p.m., when something rather extraordinary occurred. Lost in my thoughts, diligently preparing my flasks for an experiment the following day, I suddenly heard the creaking of the laboratory door. Startled, I turned my gaze toward the entrance, and to my astonishment, it swung open to reveal an old man. Now, this gentleman was not your typical visitor to our laboratory, clad in a white suit that seemed to harken back to the fashion of the 1920s, complete with a matching white top hat. He presented an enigmatic figure, curiosity mingled with a touch of apprehension, for it was highly unusual to encounter someone in the lab at such a late hour. I strained to hear any preceding footsteps, but there was naught but silence. As our eyes met, I mustered the courage to offer a friendly greeting, though my heart raced with uncertainty. "Hello," I said, attempting to maintain an air of calm, despite the bewildering circumstances. To my surprise, the elderly gentleman did not utter a word in response. Instead, he simply nodded and swiftly departed, as if on some mysterious errand. It took me a moment to fully process what had just transpired. The realization slowly dawned upon me that encountering a stranger, particularly one attired in such formal and antiquated attire, at this time of night was far from ordinary. You see, accessing the chemistry building after hours requires a swipe card, a measure put in place to ensure the security of the premises. It seemed unfathomable that an outsider, someone unaffiliated with the chemistry department, could have gained access to the third floor where our lab was situated. Moreover, having spent countless hours immersed in my studies, I was well acquainted with the professors and lecturers in our department, none of whom I could imagine donning such attire. A wave of trepidation washed over me, and instinctively I reached for my phone, dialing my mother's number. In that moment, my desire for reassurance and familiarity outweighed any semblance of logic. Hastily gathering my belongings, I made my way out of the building, my senses on high alert. The night air, usually serene, felt tinged with an eerie energy as I hurriedly departed, leaving the enigmatic encounter behind. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake off the memory of that mysterious visitor. I pondered the possible explanations for his presence, delving into realms of the supernatural and the extraordinary. Yet, as time went by, the incident faded into the recesses of my mind, becoming a mere anecdote to share with friends over a cup of coffee. To this day, I have never crossed paths with that elderly gentleman again, not even during my late-night forays into the laboratory. The incident remains an enigma, an inexplicable occurrence that left an indelible mark on my psyche. Perhaps it was a mere coincidence, a figment of my imagination heightened by the late hour and the solitude of the lab. Or perchance, it was an encounter with something beyond the realms of our understanding, a brush with the mysterious, the unexplainable.